All right. So we're going to be starting our magazine cover. So we have already got our multiple page document we started last week in InDesign. So today we're going to work with our photo in Photoshop. Then we're going to place that in InDesign and add some placement text that we can change later. Okay. But first we need to know what size we need for our magazine. So every publication has a specific size for their publications. So we're going to take a look at some media kits. So I'm going to share my messy desktop. And the way you find a media kit, if we were at the college, we would be using Card Online. And I don't know, we might be able to get it. So cardonline.ca. So this lists all the rates. So if you're looking for quotes for radio, TV, newspaper, magazine, so publications, you can check for all sorts of different kinds of publications. So if we decide that we're looking at magazines, and I'm going to type in lifestyle. Let's see what we get for lifestyle magazines. It might want me to sign in with a, there we go. So cardonline.ca. Now that's if you're registered with Card Online. Not every single publication is registered here, but there you'll be able to find a lot here. So you can see we have consumer magazines, business publications, ethnic publications, farm publications. Yes, there's a genre for that as well. And you can see all the different types of topics. So types of magazines. So consumer, like trade magazines, business to business. Then we have formats. You can even go through different publishers. So there's lots of great sources here for finding the magazine that you like. This is Grand Magazine. This is the one I used to do. So let's see what Grand Magazine has. So Grand Magazine is a lifestyle magazine. So if you take a look at the general information, oh, there's like zero information here. Well, there's not zero. There's some information here. So as you can see, it gives you a synopsis of what is in that, what type of magazine it is and who their target market is. So a lifestyle magazine specifically targeting affluent neighborhoods in Waterloo region. Okay, that's a great sentence. Who's their target market and where do they fit on the spectrum? If it's affluent neighborhoods, clearly they must make more money than the rest of us. Showcases special features on local cuisine, home decor, fashion, fitness, and travel. There you go. In only 2 sentences, we get a really good overview of what Grand Magazine is. All right. So most of the magazines and publications, radio stations, TV stations, all have a synopsis. They give you a 1 to 5 sentence overview of what kind of magazine they are and who they target. So let's take a look at issuance and closing, advertising and info rates. Okay, notice they don't have any information here. Okay, that's terrible. How are we supposed to know how much to pay? How much, like if we're trying to put a budget together and we want to use Grand Magazine because we're advertising to affluent neighborhoods in Waterloo region, how am I going to get that information? So Card Online, great. You might have to sign in, create an account, but you still might not get all the information you need. The nice thing about publications, radio, TV, all their advertising rates, you can usually find in what's called a media kit. So let's take a look to see if we can find Grand Magazine media kit. Now, there is a Grand Magazine, which is Grandparents in the US. So let's see if we can find our local one. All right, grandmagazine.ca. That's the one we want. And they have a media kit. Okay. So, and their rate card. So let's go to see if this actually says their media kit. There we go. So now we can get more of an overview about the magazine itself. Yep, this is our Waterloo Region magazine. Oh, wait, no, it's not. This is the grandparent ones. Ooh, it looks a lot like ours now. Yep. All right, we want grandmagazine.ca. Oh, that's .com. That's where I went wrong. Grandmagazine.ca. There we go. All right, so here's the media kit for Waterloo Region's Grand Magazine. So most, like I said, most publications, radio stations, TV stations, they have the rate cards, but it also gives you more information about the magazine and their target market. So you could actually use some of this information for your research of your target market. Okay. So when we did, when we first started Grand Magazine and we were looking to create Grand Magazine, we did 6 months worth of market research in the area. So we were really good at newspaper, but magazine was a whole other realm of new possibilities. And that's because people who read newspapers aren't the same people who will necessarily read a lifestyle magazine. So there's 20,000 copies in circulation. And then we've got the synopsis again at the front. And then we have our rates. So in order to work out a schedule, if you are going to advertise for a year, say, we have 6 publications here over a year. So it's bi-monthly. So every other month we get a Grand Magazine. You can see that there are discount rates for those. So if you buy one ad one time in that year, you are paying almost $3,000 for one time to reach 20,000 people. The circulation of the magazine is 20,000. We'll talk about readership in a minute. If I hope you covered that in advertising, but we'll do a quick review on that. So you can see that a full color, full page, one time to run at one time is almost $3,000. If you buy 3 issues worth, then you have a little bit of a discount. So it's just over $200 discount. If you buy 6 issues, so you buy an ad 6 times throughout the year, then your discount is over $500 per ad. So that's a pretty nice discount if you've got a budget to run 6 ads throughout the year. Again, remember who the target market is. These are affluent neighborhoods. So these people have a higher income. They travel. They like their lifestyle, leisure activities like eating out, actually having a chef come in, doing dinner parties. There's a great list of things that this target market does, which allows us to target advertisers who are willing to buy into the magazine. All right, so now that we can see the rates here, you can go down to advertising specifications. So this is something that you would look for if you are going to create an ad for a publication. You have to find out what size everything is. And so just like social media has specific sizes, right, in pixels, so you have to have, like maybe Facebook, the little square is 200 by 200, right? LinkedIn can be higher, but you need at least 300 by 300. And also it's always a ratio of 1:1. So if it's 300 this way, it's 300 that way. So when we take a look at publications, it depends where it's being printed, what size magazine it's going to be. And this particular magazine is 8.5 by, and as you can see, it's literally 1/8 of an inch smaller than a standard letter size page. So 8.5 by 8 or 10.875. That's the trim size. So what does trim mean? Trim is the actual finished size of your page. So it's 8.5 by 10.875. When you throw a piece of paper in a printer, bond paper is 8.5 by 11. That's the trim size. Then we have what's called the safe area. And inside the safe area, that's where your margins are. And don't worry, we'll go into more detail with images to see what that looks like. But we want to keep all our information inside the trim, or sorry, the safe area, so we don't have text accidentally getting too close to the edge. And then we have this thing called bleed. So whenever you're looking up the size of a magazine, newspaper doesn't have bleed because they can't print outside of the size of the paper, but magazines, brochures, posters all have the ability to print bleed. And so what that means is they're printing on bigger piece of paper, and then they're going to cut it out. They're going to trim it. So if you want your image to look like it's printed to the edge of the page, well, you've got to have excess. So the bleed is the image bleeding outside of the trim size. So when you're looking up sizes, so if you are going to do posters for your client, if you're going to be doing brochures, what are you going to be doing for that client? You need to find the specifications for 3 different things. What's the trim size? The safe area, it might also be called live area, and what's the bleed? You need all 3 of those measurements in order to properly put that in for the mechanical specifications for anything that you're going to print. Okay. You should have mechanical specifications for everything, this exact sizing, right? But when it comes to print, we have 3 different sizes, unless it's newspaper. With newspaper, they don't have the capability to print outside of that, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, so there you go, mechanical specifications, and we'll look at a couple more media kits as well, so you can see what they look like. So the nice thing about media kits as well is they will tell you what, if they might have themed issues, and maybe a particular theme is going to work best for whatever it is that you're promoting. And but they also have in this magazine, we always had regular features. So when I was placing ads, if it was a car ad, and we had several car ads, car dealerships, I would put them in the wheels section. So it would be targeted. So those people who would read wheels would likely be also looking at the car ads as well. So we would try to match them up with their theme. So these are regular themes in the every single issue of the magazine. But then there are themes that are seasonal as well, right? So those are listed here in Graham Magazine as well. As you can see, booking for the January, February issue, look at the amount of lead time you need. November 6th to book your ad. And so you would book it, and then you would have 3 weeks to get the ad completed and done and into for laying out for the publication. It looks like they backed that up a wee bit. Looks like they backed that up an extra week. Usually because, why? Because ads came in late all the time. But I don't blame the advertisers. I blame, let's see. I blame these people right here. Mostly Sherry. She's still there. She was our original salesperson, and she's still there. She always pushed my deadlines. Always. So in order for me to meet my deadlines, I had to give her fake deadlines of 2 days earlier. So if she sold more ads after the deadline, I could still figure out how to fit them into the magazine. All right, because money's money. All right, so that is what we call a media kit. And it's pretty small, this one. So what if we took a look at Chatelaine Magazine? And it's owned by Rogers. And we want to look for their media kit as well. So always, when you're looking for the media kits, always do a search for media kit. Add that into your SEO, your search engine optimization text. So 2019, hopefully they have a new one. Here we go. Media Kit 2020. That's their Rogers Publishing. So we might have to go there. All right. Now you can see all of the magazines here. Today's Parent, Hello Magazine, Chatelaine, Maclean's. So Chatelaine Magazine. Now, this is where media kits are awesome for also doing some target market research. You can use their research because they're using, take a look, Vividata. That's what we use at the college, Vividata, to find some information. Well, they've already done a lot of that for you. So 9 out of 10 Canadians have read a magazine brand in the past 3 months. If that's what you're trying to convince your client to advertise in, a magazine, that's a good stat to put in your information, right? So there's lots of good information here. 60%, 63% of magazine readers are reading exclusively via print, as in they don't read their magazines online. So there's some really good information in here. And you can actually quote the media kit, okay? So if we take a look at Chatelaine Magazine, who also has a lovely mission statement, look at their audience, 3.53. That's per thousand. That should be million. Print and digital. All right. When it comes to publications, if you take a look at like Grand Magazine had 20,000 copies, but that doesn't mean their readership is 20,000. How many people on average read one issue of the magazine? So if on average 2 people read Grand Magazine, well, now your readership is 40,000 people, right? So your possible reach of your target market is 40,000. So 20,000 circulation is how many copies go out there, but how many people per household, what's the average per household of people reading the magazine? So your potential reach could double, triple. And according to Maclean's magazine, times 8 people per issue, according to them. So that's where your readership can go way up. So that's a lot more convincing when you're trying to convince somebody to spend a fair amount of money on a magazine ad. Well, what's your potential reach? Because we're going for reach, maximum reach at minimal cost, right? So we try to work out what it would cost per person to see that ad. So we can see their publishing calendar, a lot like Grand Magazine. And as we scroll down, they too have editorial plans. So look at all the different types of features that they run. So does your ad fit in the realm of the type of features that they run? And, oh, Spark Joy. That's what Marie Kondo did. Does the object in your house spark joy? They stole it. All right. So as we go down with Chatelaine, we also have a French one. Editorial highlights. They usually have a target market information, which I didn't see here. And Maclean's magazine. Now, if you take a look at their rates, it depends if you want to be localized. Like Grand Magazine is Waterloo region, Chatelaine Magazine across Canada, but they do have Ontario issues. They have provincial issues. So that might be something that might fit your budget. And then Today's Parent. So there's lots of great information in here. And then getting down to their sizing, right? So art directions, supplied advertising materials, their ad specifications. So what are they saying? PDF, X1A. I don't see there. That's perfect bound. Here we go. Magazine trim size at the bottom. Binding, perfect binding. They just have their trim. All right. I don't see, do they have bleed anywhere? Oh, they don't have that information here. So I guess they're relying on you booking the ad and then they'll send you more information about what the size is. They've really pared this down since the last time I viewed it. All right. Because they had some really good information about their target market in their specific media kit. All right, so let's see if we can find another media kit. What other magazines do you like? Is there a magazine you'd like to look up?
The New Yorker.
The New Yorker? Okay, let's see what they say. I get that in my inbox in my email every day. Okay, the New Yorker. All right, let's see if they have advertising the New Yorker. Let's see if they have an actual media kit. Advertising. I wonder if we can, oh, sign in. You might have to sign. Let's see. Sometimes they're harder to find, or you have to ask for it. Media kit. Oh, it's looking up stories, search results for stories. All right, let's see. Magazine. I don't see anywhere to find it. So that might be something where you'd have to sign in or sign up, or you would have to email them and ask them for their media kit, which then means they have your email address and phone number so that they can call you and start trying to sell you advertising in the magazine. But I don't see it here. So the New Yorker media kit. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be on the first page of results either. Media network, advertise in the New Yorker. Yeah, it's asking you to give them a phone call, but you never know. There. So, well, at least there's some information here. So, median age, look at their median age of their reader, 54 years of age. It's almost evenly split between male and female readers. Available markets, so they split it by region, not just state, but by regions. Woohoo. All right. And they're asking you to access to contact them to get more information. Toolkit. I don't know what that is, but we can see media solutions, overview, print. All right. So there might be some more information. So we just really had to dig here. And then, of course, there's going to be the ones that say, no, you have to contact us to get information. So, you know, billboards. So there's Zoom billboards. There's Pattison. There's a few billboard companies that take care of all those outdoor media billboards. And Pattison refuses to give out information about what their prices are. They want you. They try to get you to call them so that they can upsell you and try to get you hooked on more advertising, which is part of their job, right? For sales. So there's all these magazines also have what's called market info, so you can find out more. So if we want to take a look at this lifestyle magazine, Allure, so a little bit more information. Their median age is age 40. Their available markets, and then it looks like they have a little bit more information at the bottom. So reach your audience, read more. So, but they don't have, so yeah, so you're gonna have to reach out to them for more information. about, yeah, getting prices. It's a good sales tactic. The only way to advertise there is to call them. All right. So media kits, can I think of one more? So let's look at Maclean's magazine. It's been around for some time, also under Rogers. Maclean's, I want the word media kit specifically, if we can get it. Okay, let's look up Flair since we can't. Maclean's magazine advertising. Flair media kit. Oh, 2013. All right. This is a lot harder than it. We could spend a little. Oh, here we're back to Rogers. Okay, let's check out Flair. Oh no, KO. Look at they've got Knockout. They've got 2020. There we go. L media kit. All right, let's see what we can find out about the fashion industry. L magazine, celebrating style and intelligent, engaging, inclusive, inspirational. So again, if you get a good media kit, it will have a nice breakdown of what your market looks like. This is what a good media kit has. So it's telling you what your readership is. So remember again that the number of magazines printed is not the same as readership, how many people read that magazine. So they're claiming they have almost 1,500,000 readers. So 11.5 readers per copy. There you go. 11.5. Sure. Okay. Does that seem a little off? Well, do you know, if you've ever been to the doctor's office, the dentist's office, a lot of offices, they also have subscriptions to these because their patients read them in the office while they're waiting for their appointments. So that probably has something to do with it as well. Look at our geographical segmentation of who's reading that magazine. So 41% of their readership is in Ontario. So that's a good thing to know. And we take a look at how many people are also on their social media platforms. So maybe you can't afford to put an ad in the print digital, like in the print magazine, but they also have advertising on their social media platforms as well. So that's a bonus. And then their editorial planning, what they're doing each month. So they might have seasonal content. And here's our rates. So a single page, 1 to 4 times, $22,000. Now, granted, they're reaching 1.5 million people. So, according to them. And if you do 1.5 million people reach and 41% of them are in Ontario, so do the math. So, you have a pretty good reach of your target publics. And here we go, technical specifications. So they're either called mechanical specifications or print specifications. And here they call them technical specifications, but usually you'll see the word specifications. So we have, here's our trim size, the safety or safe or live area, and the bleed. So again, these are the 3 numbers you need. You need all 3 of those measurements when you're doing any proposals. When you're choosing ads, make sure you give them some details of what they would be looking at, along with the pricing for those. So you could just print off or grab a PDF of their media kit and add that as part of your appendix in your proposal. So there you go. There's more information there. So they don't have as much about society, lifestyle, arts, and culture. We don't have as much about the target market as we used to have. All right. So that is a media kit. So if you're working with any publication, always ask for their media kit. So their media kit should always have target market information, what they're about, themes, what they run in every issue, and then the mechanical specifications and their pricing. So all that should be in their media kit. Some will still ask you about just calling to get a quote. Radio stations do that. So I worked at the Record, and this is where we built Grand Magazine. But a lot of the people I used to work with in the advertising department have moved on to other categories like radio. So I have a radio guy. If anybody needs any information about local radio, I can hook you up with my contact at the radio station. He does Chorus Entertainment, so whatever radio stations are under Chorus, and he would be happy to give you some rates that you can work with. Also, there's print. If anyone's looking at distribution of direct mail, so printing and direct mail. If you were looking for any quotes, you can go to vistaprint.ca, which is probably, that's where I get a lot of my stuff done, Vistaprint. The reason why I like Vistaprint is because it's really inexpensive for the most part, and I get pretty good stuff here. So if you need any marketing materials at all, so when I do a 5,000, like how much would it cost to send out 5,000 postcards to targeted households in Guelph? Well, the postcards themselves are ridiculously inexpensive. So 5,000 postcards printed, typical size. And you can, the great thing about Vistaprint is you can get all your quotes right here in real time. So go for premium. 5,000 postcards printed in full color, both sides, $151. Right? Do you know what's going to cost more? Oh, I don't think I got the back. I probably didn't get the back added in there. Please complete your selections. Glossy front only. All right. I can't remember how much it costs extra for the back, and you can upload your own complete design. So we're going to pretend I uploaded a design. Yay, great. But whenever you're taking a look at the sizing, they also have mechanical specifications. So if I go back, any one of these has mechanical specifications. So let's go back to the sizing here, right at the bottom, product specifications, materials, bleeds, margins, etc. Just like any print material. So here you go. There's all the pricing. It's on sale. That's nice. And product specs. There we go. And then they switch to millimeters and pixels, which is kind of a pain in the ass. So you just have to do change your units of measure in whatever platform you're working in. So you can see the trim size, which is the finish size, and then the bleed size. So how much more do you have to add to that for bleed so that when it's printed, it'll be trimmed out to the size. So finished artwork extend to fill the full bleed area to avoid white edges when it's trimmed out. Okay, and so you can get all of this great detail here. So that's nice and cheap, right? Now distribute it. Now it's 11.5 cents per card to send out. I think that's the cheapest I got. 11.5 cents times 5,000 for distribution. That's where your costs are. Your costs are in the distribution. Now, if you need any information about distributing those, there are several ways you can distribute your print products and also have them printed. I mean, they don't necessarily have to be printed directly. Like you can have them printed here, which I do. I print at Vistaprint, and then I have them mailed directly to the distribution facility. And one that I use is in Cambridge, and it is called T-Stone Mailing. So if you need any quotes, email Frank at T-Stone Mailing. I will give you some information. He's my buddy. He's awesome, and he loves working with students and helping them out. And he's happy to give you a quote for distribution of your content. All right. And he can also help with printing as well, and even ideas. He's also one of the best people for figuring out what neighborhoods where those people live in your target market. So he will save you the time in doing that research into what neighborhoods your flyers, your brochures, your direct mail have to go to, because he's been in the business for over 30 years. So he knows exactly, and he has access to a database that will give him a breakdown of how you can access that information about neighborhoods. Okay. So back to mechanical specifications, which we're going to do next. All of that information, you need to find that in order to have the proper size, so you don't have any problems with your printing and the trimming of that print. So as you can see, this particular postcard looks like it's printed right to the edge, but it's not. It's actually printed on a larger size piece of paper. That image has been extended past the trim so that when it's printed, it gets trimmed off. It gets trimmed to the edge, that trim edge, so that it looks like it's printed to the edge of the paper, because there are no printers that can print to the edge, or there would be ink mess on every single printer everywhere. Remember, you used to be able to buy one? You can't buy them anywhere anymore. They were a mess. They created a huge mess. And so that's why you don't see those printers that can print to the edge anymore. All right. So let's get to our own project today, our assignment, which will be working with our photographs today. So we've talked about mechanical specifications and what we need for size. So let's take a look at, not that one. We are going to take a look at what is bleed. So if you take a look at week 3, this is in there. And what we need to know about what is bleed. So I just talked about mechanical specifications, going to media kits, finding that information, and then making sure you write down 3 numbers down. So 3 different sizes of what is bleed. And so let's take a look at what is bleed. So whenever you're creating a finished ad, poster, brochure, you have to take a look at the mechanical specifications. So these are magazine ads, and we are producing a magazine cover today. So we need to be aware of the mechanical specifications and what that means. So some ads have no bleed. As you can see, this ad on the left, there is no bleed to this ad. There is no image projecting outside and to the edge of this page. So we didn't have to worry about it. Now, they kept their information inside the live or safe area, which we can see everything is contained, and it looks like they have a visual white frame around this image. Then we have left in bleed inside left. You can see that the water image goes right into the gutter of the magazine on the left. So the image extended into the bleed so that when it was cut and trimmed out, it looks like it goes right to the edge. But you can see that none of the other sides have taken advantage of bleed. Whoops. But then we take a look at the last ad here, and it definitely has bleed all the way around because the image looks like it's printed right to the edge of the page. So that's what we call full bleed. Okay. Now we can set up full bleed on any image and not have the picture extend off of all 3 sides. We can just have it extend off one side, and it would still be referred to today as full bleed. All right, so This is an older one of Chatelaine magazine. So we have a full page here, full page. See the size? There's no real like standard size of magazines. So if someone says, "Oh, I just want a standard size," if you take all the magazines off shelf, like go to Indigo or Chapters, take some magazines off the shelf and try to get them to stack all exactly the same, they won't, because they're all kind of different sizes. So Grand Magazine is 8.5 by 10.875. And you can see that this advertising, the trim size here for a full page is under 8 inches. So this is 7.875 by 10.75. So again, you've got to grab those measurements and put them in whenever you're choosing any magazine in order to run an ad, so that you have the mechanical specifications of what is needed for that advertisement when you're creating a file to send in to be printed. So we have trim. See where it says live area? That is inside your margins. So we'll take a look at that in a minute. Notice that we go from a full page, 7.875 to 7.375. That's a half inch. So we're going to do the math. We're going to take the trim and we're going to minus the live area to get what our margins are. And it just happens to be 0.5 inches. So trim minus live gives us our margins. Now we have our bleed. Let's take a look at our bleed. Our bleed is outside of the trim. So we look at our trim, 7.875, and we look at the bleed, 8.125. Oh, that's 0.25 inches. Okay, so we have to do a little bit of math, but it's not that hard. Okay, and then take a look at the accepted file formats. We will be file saving as, or in InDesign, we'll be exporting as a PDF X1A. So that's universal standard accepted file format for printing. All right. So this is an ad I did a long time ago for Grand Magazine for these two restaurants in one. And there's the ad specs for Grand Magazine to the left. So again, we have the trim size. Whoops. We have the trim size, the safe area. It could also be called live area. And then we have the bleed. So when we take a look at that, this particular ad I created, you can see it has crop marks in the corners. Well, that's indicating where the bleed, that there's extra image. So I would cut down this line here, those two lines, those trim marks, that would all be cut off. Now, in Grand Magazine, I asked for more bleed. I didn't go with industry standard. I went for more. So you can see that my bleed is a full half inch. Industry standard is actually 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So it would be 1/8 of an inch on this side, an inch on that side, which would make a 1/4 inch. And I like to use a half. Why? Because when I put an ad on a page, is it on a left-hand page or a right-hand page? I might need to shift it just based on how thick my magazine was. And so the curl of the paper where you can't lay it flat, that would give me a little bit of wiggle room for the bleed. So I always built in extra bleed in my ads. So this is what it looks like. So we've taken a look at the trim size. Again, trim, finished size. If your bond paper is 8.5 by 11, that's called trim. Anything outside of the trim is called bleed. And industry standard bleed is 0.125 on each side. So that's on each side, 0.125. Then this thing here, this red line, those are your margins. When we set up our margins, that's our live or safe area. So we've seen a few terms, but usually you will see safe or live, safety, live, but we always see the word trim and bleed. So trim, actual size of the page, bleed, excess that bleeds outside of that. So when it's printed, it's printed on larger paper. trimmed down to that size so you don't get awful white edges on your paper. And then, of course, we have live or safe area. Now, why do we want to keep stuff inside the live or safe area? Well, we don't want it too close to the edge of the page so it looks like it's going to get cut off. Okay, so, and that's why it's often referred to as safe area. Keep your content safe. Okay, and that's usually text content, right? That important information. So let's take a look at this particular, no, we're not going to look at that one. Oh yes, this one we added, this one doesn't have equal margins. Why? Because if it's in a really thick magazine, like, and I mean thick, like a catalog, your margins for left and right might be actually wider, because if it's going in a magazine and the magazine doesn't fit flat. So what we have is, so here's my my calendar, but this spine here, this is a spine, and that's printable too, by the way. You can print along the spine, but the spine, it's called perfect binding. If you ever see that term in your media kit, perfect binding means it's been bound with a cover. But if I open this up, I can't open this up flat, see, because what do I have? I have this happening right here. I can't put that flat. If you're printing in a magazine that's stapled, that'll lay flat. But if you're printing in a magazine that's perfect bound with a spine, when you open that up, it doesn't lay flat. So you have to compensate for the live or safe area. You might have to move your margins over so that it doesn't get lost in the, when it gets all glued together, it doesn't get lost in the gutter of this, of the folds of the book. Okay, so sometimes you'll see odd size for height versus width. All right. So we're going to, in Photoshop, we're going to create, we're going to add some leads and guides in there so that we know exactly where our content is going to go. So this is a full bleed ad. You can see it goes right to the edge. And you can see also they kept their important information inside the margin. Now, if we take a look at some of these ads here, this is full bleed. Look at Louis Vuitton. This, their ad, they have no, look at their text. Their logo is not inside the live or safe area, so it's in danger of being cut off here. Also, you can see that this whole grain ad, see how there's more room on the right than there is on the left. So their margin, they probably should have built in more margin. So move their margin over for their live or safe area. So it didn't look like it was off center once it hit the book. So you can see that they lost quite a bit of their ad because of this very thing, the thick spine. It can't lay flat. So they lost part of their ad inside the gutter of the spine. Okay, so those are all things to be aware of. All right. So let's put this to practice. What we are going to do is we're going to launch Photoshop. So I'm going to share Photoshop now. And what you're going to do is you're going to open one of your photos, pick your favorite one. I did comment on all of them. And I might have picked a favorite based on maybe your lighting was better in it. Maybe your shadows weren't as harsh. Maybe it was your pose or position. And so pick the one you want to use for your cover. And again, whatever we produce today, you can always switch out your image. You don't have to use that particular image. Okay, you can always shoot a new picture if you want to, anytime throughout the semester, so that you can update your magazine submission at the end of the semester. All right. So in this particular case, we're not creating a new file. We're opening a photo. So once you've launched Photoshop, you're going to want to open one of your pictures. All right. And my husband did not shoot new pictures yesterday for me. So I'm getting my headshots done tomorrow. So I'm using some older headshots. So I'm going to open all of these so you can see them all. Different types of lighting conditions that we're working with. All right. So open one of your photos. Okay. So this is one of my pictures. And this is a more recent one. And then I have, this was shot up against a white wall. And the result I got from this image is this. So this is essentially what we're going to be doing today in class. We're going to go from this to that. And you can see the difference here where I'm a little bit dulled out here. I need to work on some of the color here. I've closed, yeah.
I'm sorry to bring you back. Are we opening the picture from our saved document or through Photoshop? Sorry, I didn't get that part.
Photoshop. So you should be launching Photoshop and you should be opening one of the photos from the group of photos that you submitted for working in this assignment today.
Yeah, you said you shouldn't create a new. How do I just go to opening and go search for?
Yes, you don't create new. You want to open your Photoshop file already exists. Your photo already exists. So there's no need to create new. We need to open that file.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. And I also have this headshot. This is pre-COVID weight gain and hair growth. So, and this is window light. So I have 3 different scenarios here. So I'm using window light, which some of you used. So I've got a bit of a harsh shadow in the background here. My jacket almost matches the color of the background. Then I have a ring light that I've used. I'm standing in front of a white backdrop. So I have straight on lighting here. I trying to remember. Yeah, we did have one light off to the left as well, because you can see the way my shadows are falling on the back. And then I have another ring light where I'm really close to the camera. And so you can see I've got to get rid of this background and my crazy hair around the edge here. All right. So I'm, and I don't have any other lights on in this room except for the ring light. So I have 3 different scenarios here of lighting. And so I'm going to show you how to color correct them all. Okay. So let's go with this one here. And I'm just going to show you how to do some basic color correction of your file. So having worked in I worked in the photography department, as well as my graphic design job at the Record was in the photography department. So I did a lot of photography work as well, and editing and that sort of thing. Helped a lot of photographers with their photos. And so I'm going to show you some very basic but effective enhancement tools. Okay. So is everyone ready? Can I get a thumbs up? Are you ready with your file? Thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. All right. So we've got everybody ready to go here. Great. And so what we're going to do with this open file. I'm not going to crop it. I'm not going to do anything to it yet. I'm going to take a look at enhancing it. So you don't have to be an expert in Photoshop to know how to get really professional looking results from taking your own photos. So let's take a look at some of the best tools in Photoshop. Now, I don't know if it's capturing everything here. So if you go under the image menu, there is an adjustments tab. This is my favorite place to go, especially when I have a lot of photos to enhance all at once. So under image adjustments, we have this thing called levels. This is the best tool for contrast, for creating contrast. So image adjustment levels. So choose that, and you can see that the keyboard equivalent is Control L, or on a Mac, Command L. L for levels. All right. So what this is telling me here is this mountain range is telling me how many, what my shadow point is here. So if you pull the slider on the left of the mountain range towards the center, take a look at how it enhances your shadows and your blacks. So I went from, it's a little bit washed out, to, if I pull that over to where all of this noise is in my mountain range, you can see I've been able to reduce that, and I can get some much nicer contrast in my image. Like so. So if I pull that over too far, you don't want to go too far. And this is something you play with until you get it the way you like. Now your screen might have something to do with the results of that as well. How bright is your screen? How dark is your screen? Is it calibrated? As in, does it match some kind of output somewhere else? So your screen might give you different variants of what you're going to see. All right, so now that I've played with my blacks, that's my black slider. So now I've got this really much nicer contrast in my color and tone. If I go to the far right, that's my white slider. If I pull that towards the center, I'm going to brighten up my highlights. Now, if you go too far, what happens? This is called blowout. We're blowing out our highlights, and so we've lost the detail in there. So I definitely don't want to do that. But I could brighten it up a wee bit. I just have to be careful I don't lose. That's the key to using highlights, is you don't want to blow out or lose any definition inside those highlighted areas. Okay, so I'm going to a little bit more. And you can see those highlights are kind of yellow. I'm going to show you how to color correct after that. So what did we do here? Under image, adjustments, levels. That is step number 1 for contrast. Black slider to the left, white slider to the right. And if you need to open up shadows, if you have really dark shadows and you're like, I think I want to open those up and see some more detail, that's your mid-tone slider, the one in the middle. If you pull it towards the black, see how I'm opening up my shadows? And I can now see a lot more detail in my hair where I didn't have detail before. So see, I don't see the detail here in this dark spot and behind my ear, but if I pull that slider to the left, to the blacks, you can now see it's pulled up that detail. Now it does wash the rest of me out. So it takes a bit of balance here. Okay. So it depends on how much detail you want to keep. Okay. So that's the mid-tone slider. If you want to close out those dark areas and you want maybe you're too light. So maybe your lighting conditions made you look washed out a little bit. Well, then the mid-tone slider moving to the right might help bring down and help increase your shadows. And so giving you a whole different look. So if I go into using that exact same one with this headshot, this is my window light. So my shadows are, I'm kind of washed out here, my shadows and my contrast. And I don't have, I have some highlights reflection off my glasses and my teeth here. So how do I enhance this one? So using the same tools here, image adjustments levels, you can see there's very little information in this range right here. So I have to be careful how far I pull that over so I don't blow out all of my highlights here. But I can use the mid-tone slider, open up those shadows to reveal some more detail, and then pull in my black slider to give it the contrast it needs. So this is the before and this is the after. Whoops, if I use my history palette. So if you're looking to go backwards in your history palette, or you want to see what you've done, under window, go to history. One of my favorite toolboxes to have up here, because I can go, here's what I've done and here's what I have before. So that way you can see what the results of your changes are. All right. So now if I go back to this one, let's see what happens with image adjustments levels. Wow, look at all that information, all that noise here. And again, if I open it too far, I've blown out the highlights in my face here. So I have to be careful how much I pull that over. So my best bet actually is using my mid-tone slider to open up my shadows a little bit and reveal a bit more detail on my clothing. And then I'm going to use the black slider to add a bit more contrast. There we go. And then using your history palette, you can see your before and your after. Okay. How are we doing? I'm going to go back to my New York one. All right. Because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to play with our colors. Again, you don't have to be an expert in Photoshop to get expert looking results from your photo shoots, even if you didn't have optimal lighting conditions. So the next thing we're going to do, first, let's make sure, did everyone have a satisfactory and ready to move on to colors? If I could get a thumbs up if you're ready to move on to the next step. Awesome. All right, pretty much everybody. Excellent. So what we're going to do is we're now going to take a look at color enhancement. So again, under the image menu to adjustments, go to hue saturation, hue saturation. And it's Control U because H was taken for hide. So hide or whatever else H might be used for. So they use U and hue. So this is one of my favorite all-time easy to color correction modes here. Hue saturation. Yeah.
I tried to go to my image and go to my adjustment, but it's not highlighting, is in gray. I can't click on it. I don't know if I did something wrong.
You don't have anything selected on your screen, do you?
No.
Okay, so one thing, just so you know, if you just happen to make a pixel selection and you can't see it, so if I accidentally selected something, it's only going to work in that selection, or the selection isn't big enough. So if there's Control D is for deselect is my go-to whenever I can't get any of my windows working. Okay, so make sure you have your image selected, not selected, but open on your screen, the one that you want to make changes to. And then under image adjustments, hue saturation. Now, if you don't get that, another place you might need to look is under image mode. Is it in RGB? So Esther, can you check image mode? What color mode is it in?
Oh, okay. I have it in RGB.
Yes,
color.
it should be in RGB. So you should be able to access your
Okay.
hue saturation now.
Okay, found it.
Got it? Okay, great. All right. So once again, this is one of my favorite places to go. Why? Because this hue slider here is a lot of fun to play with. So you can be a blueberry, you can be the Hulk. You can change your colors to anything. Here's the thing though. That's, if you take a look here, we're using our master controls. So it's taking a look at every single color pixel in your image, and it is changing every single color pixel. However, what if I only want to play with my yellows? Because I look at my face and I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit too yellow, and I want my whites to be less yellow. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go to my yellows only in the master list and watch what happens when you play with the slider now. See the difference? It's only playing around with my yellows, what it can read as yellow. Okay, so if I reset that back to 0, let's see if I try reds this time. Okay, it's reading a lot more of my face, but if you notice, it's not doing anything to my shirt. My shirt is not changing at all. So the nice thing here about Photoshop is it's pretty smart in being able to read the pixels. Okay, so it can change only the color pixels you're asking it to look at. So if I go to blues, will I find anything at all in the blues? No, it changes nothing. It doesn't read anything as blue in my image. Okay, and just take note that green is made up of mostly yellow, just so you know. So I want to modify the yellows in here. I find there's too much yellow in here. So I'm going to take my yellow, but instead of changing the color of the yellow, might make it slightly warmer with the red here by going left. I have to watch it because I can see it pick up in my hair. What if I desaturate the color? So if I take my saturation slider and move it all the way to the left, I have now removed all the yellow in the yellows, which actually gives me a nicer skin tone. So all the way up, you could always increase your yellows. But in this particular case, I'm desaturating my yellows, and I find I get a whiter light. So instead of a yellow sunny light, I'm getting a indoor, more white light with my skin tone. There we go. I kind of like that better. So let's see what the before and after of that is. So there's the before and there's the after. So I went from a more yellow tone of overall of my photo to a less yellow, more white light. So play around with that. So let's try this one. Image, hue saturation. So I could have a lot of fun with that as well. But I'm going to choose yellows in this one as well, because I can see there's a lot of yellow in my whites. You can see in the background. So if I go to yellows and I desaturate the yellow, you can see I go to a very white background. I just have to be careful that I don't remove so much that I turn myself into a bit of a mess here. Gonna warm that up a little bit with my hue slider as well. Okay, so that is using, let's go to this one. So this one's definitely yellow. You can definitely see that this gray wall in the background looks definitely more yellow. And that's because of the sunlight coming through the window. That's the color cast that it gave me. So under image adjustments, hue saturation, I'm going to go to my yellows and I'm going to make them, do I want to make them a little bit more red? Not really. Do I want to neutralize them a little bit? I'm definitely going to desaturate them. There we go. I've now neutralized the yellow, so I look more natural in tone here. There we go. So let's see the before and after that one. Very yellow from the window light, the sunlight, to more neutralized by removing some of that yellow. All right. How are you doing? Is it looking pretty good? Are you impressed with yourselves? I hope so. So that is simply using image adjustments levels and image adjustments hue saturation. It is an excellent, awesome tool. Okay, because Photoshop is smart. It is picking out those pixels and it's only altering those pixels. All right, now we need to crop our image to the exact size we need it for our cover. I think I'm going to go to the one so I can show you how I end up with this. All right. So here is my cover image. I could always do some further color work on this, but I'm going to leave it the way it is now. Now I need to crop it to the size of my magazine. So you need the cropping tool and we need to type in a measurement. So our finished magazine is going to be 8.5 by 11. Okay, that's standard. That's a standard size letter page, 8.5 by 11. Now, if we need an 1/8 of an inch bleed, industry standard 0.125 on both sides on the width. Okay, so 0.125 on this side plus 0.125 on this side equals 0.25. So my finished trim size is 8.5 plus 0.25 gives me 8.75 IN for inches. I'm working in pixels right now, as you can see. All right, 8.75. So again, industry standard bleed is 0.125, but that's only on one side. So you always have to double that. All right, or you take bleed minus trim gives you 0.25. Okay, so that's divided by 2 gives you your 0.125. Okay, so we've now got 8.75 inches. Well, same goes for the top and bottom. If we need 0.125 industry standard bleed at the top and at the bottom, let's add those together. So 0.25 and add that to our trim size. So now we need 11.25 IN for inches if you need to type that in. I'm going to move myself up. Now, granted, I might be too big for my cover, but that's okay. All right. Now, here's the thing. I don't have enough picture for my cover. Like, I'm not going to have room. Like, where am I going to put my headline? Or I have too much picture and not enough space around my head. So I'm actually going to extend this past the background. See that? I'm going to extend it because I need to put some text in here and I need to put a masthead at the top. So I'm actually going to make my canvas bigger than my actual size of my photo. Now you might have the opposite problem. Maybe you have too much background and not enough you in the image. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to crop it tighter, meaning you've got to come in tighter to your image and crop some of that out. Okay, so I could always do something like that. So I'm going to make it bigger than what I have because of the background. By the way, if you have in the bottom of your toolbox, I had black in my background, which is why it went back black. I can always switch those by clicking the little double arrows there to switch the foreground and background colors. So I probably want to go with white rather than black, but you can see with the black how I'm cropping this image. So I need some room to put some text. So that's why I'm making the image bigger than the canvas size, the crop bigger than the image that I have. But that's okay, because we're going to fill it with something else. Anyway, right, so I'm going to switch that to white. And I'm going to crop that, double click. And there's my cropped image for my magazine cover, as in cropped to size. So again, that's using the crop tool. We added 1/8 of an inch bleed left and right for 1/4 of an inch added to our trim size, which was 8.5. And doing the math, we had 8.75 inches wide. Then we did the same math to the top and bottom. So 1/8 of an inch at the top, 1/8 of an inch bleed at the bottom, add those together for 1/4 inch bleed, add that to my finished trim size, which is 11, and I get 11.25 inches. And if it's industry print, our pixels per inch must be 300 dots per inch. So if you have any other number there, you need 300 dots per inch for print. And that's the resolution for print. Yeah.
After you said we should double click on the picture after I've gotten the size.
Yeah, sorry. Did you have 300 in there? I didn't review 300.
No, mine just disappeared.
Okay, so you can click on the crop tool again. If you've already double clicked to crop it.
Yeah.
If you're clicked on the crop tool, you'll be able to see what the size is at the top.
No, I mean the whole picture. I see the where you can adjust the cropping resolution. But the picture, as soon as I finished cropping, I clicked on it, like you said, and it just disappeared. So the only thing I can see is just the arrow, the curved arrow.
Okay, so you might have, did you change it to inches from PX for pixels?
Yes, it was in PX. It was in it was already in PX and /inches.
No, here, like right beside, when you typed in the number 8.75, does it say PX or IN for inches?
IN.
It does say IN?
Yes.
Okay, so Control-0 to see if you can fit your image in the screen.
Not doing anything.
Okay.
I tried to go back, but it's not even allowing me.
So this is where you want your history palette open, Esther. So if you go under the window menu to history.
Yes.
Make sure your history palette's open. So if you have to go backwards a step in your history palette, you can go backwards.
I did, but it's not allowing it's not allowing me go. It keeps giving me this error. I can't even click. So I tried to even delete, but it's not letting me use.
Okay, then I wonder if you have an issue with your Photoshop other than that, because it almost sounds like if your picture disappeared, it's likely because it was in pixels. So you literally have an 8-pixel image by 11-pixel image on your screen, and that's why it's not displaying.
Okay, so I have to
So go back to the beginning, click on, see where it says the name of your file at the top of your history palette?
Yes.
Click on it. That'll take you back to the very beginning. Did you get it?
No.
Could it be her resolution number? Because when I changed from
Yeah.
pixels to inches, mine changed. So then I changed it, but like it changed to 72. So
Okay.
then it shrunk it really small on my screen. So then I fixed it and went back to 300, which I see yours is. So
Yes.
Esther, maybe check that number too.
Yeah. So I should have gone over the print number, the 300, before everyone double clicked. So that's where the history palette comes in. When your prof makes a mistake of not covering that with you, you can go back one step and fix the resolution. So you should have width height resolution here. You should have 8.5 by or 8.75 IN for inches. If you don't have IN for inches and you have another measurement, that could be part of the issue. So you want IN for inches if you were working in pixels before. And then that once you have your width and your height, you need to type in the 300 pixels per inch right there before you double click to crop your image to size. Okay.
I found it finally.
Okay. So I'm going to extend mine past what I have. So I have room to put my masthead a title. And I can still make some adjustments after that as well. So now that I have my 8.75 IN for inches, 11.25 IN for inches for height, and 300 pixels per inch, I'm going to double click this. And I now have my image. So you can do Control-0, always brings your image to full screen. All right. Now we're going to close crop it. So you are in the days of luxury. I like to call it luxury because I used to have to close crop this by hand, meaning I'm cutting out the background. So we have excellent tools in Photoshop now that do most of the work for us. So we're going to make Photoshop do all the work. Why would we do all the work when we can get Photoshop to do it? So what I want you to do is choose any selection tool, such as there's the object selection, quick selection, whichever one is showing up in that window. I use the magic wand tool a lot. That's why mine is more prominent, but you might have object selection. Okay, or the lasso tool will work as well. Will it? No. So you need one of these tools, object selection, quick selection. They're all in the same set here. Once you've selected that, here's the cool thing. We're going to let Photoshop do all the work for us. Okay. So once you've selected one of those tools, take a look at the top of your screen. See at the top middle, it says select subject. Okay, let's see what Photoshop thinks is the subject in this image. So I'm going to hit select subject. And yes, it'll take a little bit. And look what it did. It completely selected me, the subject, in the image. If I zoom in, it's like, oh yeah, look what it did. It's missing a few hairs here and there. It's missing some of the details, but it did a pretty good job, except for my hair, selecting me, the subject in the image. And we tested this a couple when this first came in, this select subject. This is only two levels, like 2 Photoshops ago. So we tested it, and one of my students was standing in a forest of fall trees, like fall leaves. And it's like, there's no way it's going to figure that out. And it did. It absolutely picked him out of this background. So Photoshop's pretty smart. Now, we still have to help it out though, right? So what happened here, if I zoom in Control Plus, sure, it's selected me, but it hasn't selected all my hair. So I have an issue here, right? You can see I'm a little bit pixelated as well. That's okay. So you can see that my hair isn't selected. So we're going to have to help Photoshop finish that select subject. option. So once you've selected the subject, move to the button to the right and now choose select and mask. So I'm going to show you how to use select and mask because this thing's pretty awesome. So I used to have to go in with an eraser and use an eraser to erase all the content between the hairs. You don't have to do that, you lucky dogs, you. So this is all fairly new. Well, I've been using Photoshop for over 20 years, so this is definitely brand spanking new for me. So this has been, this select and mask has been around for a few, probably 6 levels. I think it came in CS6, but the improvements are fantastic here. All right, so as you can see, let me get out of here. I'm going to cancel that. So the first thing you're going to do is after you've got your crop done is you're going to choose a selection tool. Okay, so object selection might be the tool that's sitting there on the top, maybe quick selection sitting on the top, or magic wand. I use magic wand all the time, which is why it's sitting on the top in my toolbox. But if you hold down one of those selection tools, you'll see there's a set in there. Any one of those will do, because then it'll show you this select subject button. So if you select, I've already selected it. I'm going to deselect, Control D. Oh no, what's happening? Are you still there? Everyone's still there? Okay, good. All right, my computer's having some fun with me. All right, so if I want to deselect, that's Control D, and I'm gonna hit that select subject again. So I'm letting Photoshop do the work. It's gonna try to pick me out, the subject, out of the background. Now that it's done that, we're gonna go to the button right beside it and choose select and mask. So now I'm gonna show you how to use this because it's incredible. If you do it right, it's definitely an effective tool to use. So if you take a look at the properties to the right, does everyone have this window? If you don't have it, please speak now.
I lost mine.
You lost yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mistakenly closed because I was trying to look for my tool. My tool just disappeared too, but it's selected on Windows, but it's not on the screen. So I thought it was hiding behind that, and I deleted.
Okay, well, there's a properties palette that shows up in your select and mask. You have your picture open, yes?
Yes, it's selected, like select and marks, but the tools disappeared. I don't know if because I closed it.
No, so do you have what I have open on your screen right now, Esther?
Okay, I found it.
Okay, and on the right-hand side, we have properties. And see where it says view, that tiny little button that says view at the top? I want you to click on that and choose overlay. And the reason why I want you to choose overlay is because you can choose the color that contrasts over top. So it helps you see the edges that you're going to clean up. So I have overlay. So again, that's by clicking on the view, there's a little tab to the right, and you want to choose overlay. Once you've chosen it, you've got to click outside of the box to close that. And underneath here, see how we have opacity? Right now I'm using this awful gold color, but if you see opacity and I zoom in, Control plus, this, if I just cut out the background right now, that's what my close crop would look like. It's a bit choppy. And I've lost all those nice hairs that I used to have in my selection. So that's the opacity. I'm going to bring that back down. I like using about 70 to 80% opacity. Why? Because I can see through that color and I can see what I still need to clean up and pick up. There's all these hairs I want. So see this color underneath the opacity slider? If you click on that, try to choose a color that is contrasting to your image. So you can really see those hairs that you need to clean up. and things you want to clean up underneath. Like it did a really nice job with my jacket here, I have to say. But I can see that I need to pick up some of these hairs here along the edge. So pick a color that's contrasting. So opposites attract, right? So my hair is red. There's a lot of red and yellow in my image. So I might go opposite of red and yellow is green. There we go. Even a green screen look here. So now I can see the color here. And I'll click OK. So again, if I zoom in on that detail, I can see that the background is still showing through my hair. And I can see that it's cropped out some of the details of my hair here. So we're going to fix that. We're going to fix that. So once you're to this point, you've selected your view, which is overlay. You have made sure your opacity is around 70% is usually pretty good, 60 to 70%. And you've chosen a contrasting color to your background. Okay, that is so you can see your image underneath that you're picking up as well as what you need to get rid of. So I might go with, let's see, I'm going to go with a turquoisey greeny blue here. And okay. So now let's take a look at the details. You should always zoom in on the detail. Control plus. And where am I going to start? I'm going to start with my hair right there. Whoop. So in order to use this tool properly, we need to choose the right tool in our toolbox. And you can see our toolbox is very, very small. We don't have a lot of tools in here. So the one I want you to use for this exercise, because it's the best one, is Refine Edge Brush Tool. It's the second tool in the toolbox. And how does this tool work? Well, you can use different sizes of the tool. So on your keyboard, if you want to change the size of your brush, you use the right square bracket to go bigger and the left square bracket to go smaller. Okay. And so that takes care of the brushes, but let's go back to your properties. So we set up the view, the opacity, and the color. Now look under this button called Edge Detection. Again, we don't want to do a lot of the work. We want Photoshop to do most of the work. So let's set this up for Photoshop to handle it. So under Edge Detection, so that little arrow beside Edge Detection will open that up if it's closed for you. You will see something called Radius, Smart Radius. I think I would like to turn on Smart Radius. So I'm going to click that little check mark on. And if I'm looking at my image and I pull the radius to the right a little bit, it's going to clean up pixel by pixel a little bit more of that edge for me. And that is edge detection. It's trying to figure out where the edge is to your background. Okay. Don't go higher than 3 or 4 pixels. Why? Because then it'll start softening up your pixels and you won't have a really smooth cleanup of those hairs or those pixels. So one last review. Number 1, view on overlay. 2, opacity around 70%, in and around 70%, so that you can see your foreground, your selection, as well as the background and things we need to pick up. We need to pick up these hairs that are covered by the mask. If we go 100%, that's what we have. If we go back to 70%, I can see what I still need to capture in my pixels. Then we chose a contrasting color. And now edge detection. Again, that's that little tab here. Make sure Smart Radius is turned on. And we're going to change the Smart Radius so it's picking up about 3 or 4 pixels. It's going to depend on how many pixels per inch you have in your file, but we are all working with the exact same pixels per inch now that we've cropped it. So you should probably mine isn't as sharp likely as some of yours, but we'll be all working with about the same pixel ratio here. So I've got 3 pixels. So what this edge detection is going to work with also is my brush. So if we're looking at edge detection radius, this brush right here, the radius, come on, give me a name. I'm hovering over it. Brush tool, there we go. Refine edge brush tool. Well, that radius is, and smart radius is going to work with this tool. So watch what happens with my brush. And I have to be careful that it's not too big. So I might left square bracket, make that a little bit smaller. Watch what happens when I paint over the hair in the background. See what it's doing? It's going, oh, look, there's some background between those hairs. I'm going to paint those out and leave your hairs selected. What? It's magic. Now, be patient. It takes time. And so just go nice and slow. And I'm going to go over the hairs that aren't selected and bring those back into the selection. Okay, so now you can see my hairs are selected, but it's managed to get rid of all the hair or the background between my hairs just by painting right over them. And so I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go over all my edges here. See how it's bringing back my hair, but it's not bringing back the background in my edge detection. So I might want to grab, I don't know why I want to grab this wisp, but the more wisps you grab of your hair, the more natural your close crop looks. It doesn't look like it was cut out with a crude pair of scissors. So what I want you to do is play with the size of your brush and start painting around the edge of your hair to bring back those details so that when we delete the background, we have a very natural looking close crop with all these great details included in our close crop. All right, so now's the time to ask questions as you go. So does anyone have any questions about how theirs is working?
Yeah, so behind I was wearing a black shirt in my photo, and behind me was a black ottoman, and I kind of picked that up as part of my arm. So how do I delete the like ottoman chunk out?
Okay, so if it won't disappear, if it's still part of your selection, we'll get rid of that with an eraser tool afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so in right in here as well. So we have the option of the radius tool brush that we're using now. We can use an add and subtract brush to finish that off for the ones that are too close that Photoshop's going, well, I don't know what the difference is, right? Which is the case of you. But we'll get rid of that after we go through our edge detection for the details, and then we'll go into add and subtract. Okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. All right. Anybody else?
Okay, Caroline. When I was trying to do the refine edge tool, on top of when I did the select subjects tool, it gave me, I did my background, the opacity and the color, and all of a sudden the tool disappeared. All I could see, if you under your brush, if you go over on top of your tool, the one that you're selecting, the one on top of it is what I see in mine. It's just giving me that and the size. So I don't know if that is, then when I put it on the image, it's a circle with plus in it.
Okay. You're like in the same window we are right now?
Yes.
And you've got your refine edge tool?
I don't know if it's my refine edge tool because it's, you know, on your toolbox, the one you're selecting now, the one up is what I have. One on top, right on top of your selection. Yeah, that one.
Well, that's the one that's selected now?
Yes, because it's not even giving me an option to take the one, the refine edge one. I can't even find my.
You don't have this tool?
No. I only have the first one.
Okay, that's very curious. I have no idea what's going. See, this is where I do not like Zoom because I can't see what you're doing on your computer screen. So the only thing I can get you to do is while everyone is working on removing background. By the way, for those of you who wear glasses, don't forget to get in the lenses there because there'll be background in there. So zoom in, the devil's in the details. So zoom in on those. All right, Esther, I'm gonna have to get you to share your screen because I have no concept of what's happening for you. Oh, by the way, I just painted over the edge of my face here and I picked up green inside, which is a bad sign. So I'm gonna wanna go back in and fix that.
I'm using another computer to do the classwork. But the thing is, you see how your tool is, your round big tool is selected. Inside of mine, yours has a dot in it, right?
Yeah, it's actually a plus sign. So Esther, take a look at I know it's really hard to see because it's so tiny.
Yes.
Take a look at the upper left-hand corner of your page. There's a plus sign and there's a minus sign and then the size of your brush. Do you see that?
Yes, my size is 12.
Then that's too tiny, probably for the size of your image. So use, see beside your letter P, you have square brackets on your keyboard.
Okay.
If you hit the right square bracket, it'll make your brush bigger. If you hit your left square bracket beside the letter P, it'll make your brush smaller. So you can control the size of your brushes there.
Okay, I found it. I got it.
Okay, great. So
but why is it not let me see, like you have your tools, like 1, 2, 3, like your 7 tools, but I can only see one. It's only giving me that option of that first one. That
I'm not sure. Because they should come up with this menu. So honestly, I'm sorry, Esther, I don't know. And hopefully it's not an issue with your Photoshop. So under the window,
I went to the tool.
if you turn tools off, go to window, down to the bottom to tools, and see if you turn them back on, if you get them all.
No, that's all it's giving me.
That's still all it's giving you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure what's going on then because that's you're the first out of all the semesters I've taught this. You're the first who's had that issue with only one. So I wonder, are you on a PC or a Mac?
I'm on a Mac.
Okay. And I'm on a Mac too, so I'm not sure I'm sorry, Esther. You're running into a technical issue that I can't really solve unless you and I have an offline later.
Okay, sure, no problem.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So for the rest of you, hopefully it's working. Again, we're going for the details and we're trying to collect. I'm trying to grab the wisps of my hair here. And so I want to make sure I'm grabbing some of these details and I'm just painting over them. All right. So as I get around here to my earring, I'm running into a different issue where when I paint over that edge, it's actually bringing back some of my background. And if I paint over the earring here, if I paint over that to try to define it, it's filling it in. And so I'm not getting what I want on either parts of these. So for those of you who have gone all the way around your subject, you're satisfied with all the hairs that it's picked up all the way around, you've gotten rid of some of that background, and you've picked up some of these great details. So if you have an ottoman or in my case, I have this earring that I have to define. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this brush tool. So the brush tool uses a plus or a minus. So if I use the plus, it's going to add the content I want to keep in my selection. If I use the minus brush, so the upper left-hand corner, the minus brush, I can erase what I don't want to keep. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to paint this back out. Now, what if I paint too much? What if I paint all of this? But I still want to go work on those details. Well, I'm going to paint it out. And with a smaller refine brush again, I'm going to go smaller this time. I'm going to see if I can capture some of those details without painting back in the background. So I'm just getting more detail oriented with the size of my brush. So for whoever there had the ottoman, you're going to use the brush tool underneath the refine edge brush. You are going to paint it out using the minus brush. Okay, so you're going to paint over top with whatever color that was, and that will get rid of it from the selection. Okay. So now I have a pretty good selection here. I'm going to zoom in. And I think I got a bit of green on my face right here, which means I've got some, it's going to be a bit see-through. It's going to be translucent. So with a slightly bigger brush tool, the minus one, there we go. I'm going to paint that edge. Wah! Sorry, the plus. I'm going to paint that back in. So I'm going to get rid of that green that I managed to paint on the edge of my face there. You also have hardness of your brush as well. So I might want a harder brush when I paint back in that edge so I don't put a soft edge on there. See what happens there? Whoop. So now that I've done that, I can go back to my refine edge and I'll paint right back over that. There we go. Again, the devil's in the details. So the more you zoom in, the better off you are. All right, how goes the battle? How are we doing? So
It's pixelating my ottoman. Like it's not fully like erasing it, it's like pixelating it.
Okay, so if that's the case, don't worry about it. We'll erase it when we go back into the main scene.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty good, but it's not perfect. But it's a lot better than what we used to have to do. So you're just going to have to do a little bit of manual labor. All right.
It's kind of made a part of my like body though, pixelated too. I'm gonna use the plus, like it kind of pixelates it more. So I don't know if I'm like ruining it more.
So just paint over that so it's solid with to keep it in the image. And then yeah, because if it goes pixelated, it means it's trying to figure out whether it's foreground or background.
With like the plus sign though on like when I went over my arm, it kind of made some of it blue, like my background color. So I don't know if it's gonna cut off part of my arm.
It will make it transparent. Yeah. So just so don't use the refine edge tool at that point. Use the solid brush tool.
Okay.
And then just paint over it so that it's 100% selected.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So it's great, but it does have some limitations. All right. So we'll give this a few more minutes so you can keep working on the details. Again, don't forget to zoom in. Control plus. Get in on those details. Oh, I want to paint back in. I just realized I painted out the edge of my glasses here, reflection. So I'm definitely going to want to use a much smaller brush and paint that detail, add that detail back in on my glasses. I accidentally painted that out. There we go. So take a look at all those details. Make sure they're included. All right. So the more you zoom in, the more you can capture the details you want to keep. Some of it's going to be, you know, you're at your own visual discretion. But remember that the smaller the detail, the more you zoom in, the more you can work on the details. But then when you zoom back out, control minus, those details minimize and you don't see them as much. So if you can get pretty good work done when you're zoomed right in, remember when you zoom out, they won't be as obvious as they are when you're focused on a tiny little spot. Okay. Oh, my husband just made an omelet. It smells so good. All right, so I'll give this a couple more minutes. And then what we're going to do, we're going to say yes to our new crop. We're going to delete our background, and then we're going to take a 10-minute break because your eyes might be crossing at this point from looking so closely at your screen. All right. So I see I have a little bit of white at the bottom. Now that I've zoomed out, oh, I just don't have enough image. Oh, that's okay. I'll bring it back. All right. So does everyone still need a couple more minutes to paint around themselves? All right, we'll give it a couple more minutes. I'll just pause the recording so that it's pause. Wherever it went. If you want to check to see how well you're doing, zoom in on a spot where you added the detail. Like for me, it would be this hair at the top. If I change the opacity of my color to 100%, let's see what that would look like if I cut out the background. Pretty good. There we go. So that's what it's going to keep. Did I miss some around the top here? I might want to go over these edges again. So I'll reduce this. Let's see, increase, decrease the opacity. It's actually not too bad. Increase, decrease. So I'm just missing some. I might want to capture this over here. So by increasing your opacity to 100%, see if it looks fairly natural. Did you capture grabbing some of these details on the outside, like wispy hairs that might help with the look of realism when we cut out the background? And then we have the option of replacing it with something else. So I'm just going to go back over some of these details here. Turn on my opacity to 100% and see what it looks like. Okay, so I've just captured a bit more here. All right. And 100%. Okay, so it's as good as it's going to get at this point. All right. So when you are done, what we have to do at the very, very bottom the very bottom, we want to scroll using the slider on the right. At the very bottom, it says output to selection. We could use a layer mask, but we're not going to do that. We could use a layer mask, but we're not going to. We're going to output it to the selection we've made, so that when we inverse that selection, we simply have to delete it and we've gotten rid of our background. Okay. You could always create a new layer with that selection. So for our purposes today, we are going to output to selection. So again, that's at the very bottom of the toolbox. If you use the scroll bar on the right to scroll down to the bottom, output settings will be output to selection. So when I hit OK, here we go. It has selected me. And if I zoom in, you'll see it's done a better job of the selection, but don't worry that it didn't capture each and every one of these hairs, because that little marquee doesn't have the capacity to outline extreme detail. It's selected. It's just hard. It's just that the marquee itself, these little dots that are running around, aren't able to put a marquee around finer selections. Okay. So this is where you'll end up. You'll end up with a selection of you, the person in the image. And that's where we'll end up. So as soon as you get to this point, don't deselect, Control D. We need that marquee floating. All right. So again, select and mask. Once you're done and you're happy with your selection, go down to the bottom output to selection and click OK. And you'll be selected, not your background. You'll be selected, and then that'll be the next step. So as some of you might want to keep working, if you're done to this point, great. We are going to take a 10-minute break to clear our minds and our eyeballs of this close cropping work. And then we'll continue. We're going to erase the background. Yes. We're going to add color, we could add a picture, color, anything to the background. And we're going to add a vignette and some text. And we'll have this beautiful photoshopped magazine cover done that we can put on our InDesign file. All right. So I'm going to pause recording. See you in 10 minutes. Hopefully now that you've done your refine edge brush, you went to the bottom of your select and mask window, and the output selection at the very bottom here was output to selection, and you clicked OK. And so this is where we are. So currently, if I were to delete right now, and if you take a look at your layers palette, you can't delete anything at the moment because in our layers palette, so if you don't have your layers palette open, you can go up to the window menu to layers. And you will see in your layers palette that your image is the background layer and it's locked. And so we can't, if I hit the delete key or backspace, I can't delete anything. I can only fill it with color. And that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to delete the background so it's transparent. So what I have to do to the background image is unlock it. So take that little lock, we're going to unlock it, and we're going to turn it into a layer. Now that I've done that, if I hit backspace or delete now, I delete me out of the foreground. And look how messy that background is. Now that you delete the foreground, it's like, wow, there's a lot of mess back there. So I'm going to Control Z that. What we need to do is we need to inverse our selection. So we've made a selection and it just happens to be us, the subject, but I really want to delete the background. So what I need to do is under the select menu, I need to inverse that selection. So select, inverse. Now the marquee isn't just around you, the subject, but it's also around the perimeter of your file. So you should see a floating marquee around you and the perimeter of your file, meaning everything in between that is selected. Now when you hit the delete or backspace button, you've now deleted the background. Control D to deselect, and you should have, if I zoom in, you should have a pretty good close crop of yourself with a checkerboard background, which is your transparency. And now we can put any background in there we like. All right. So how'd you do? Does anyone have?
Can you go over the inverse again?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. And here we go. Oh, sorry, it's clicking on my Zoom. Just a second. Z. All right. So this is where I'm at. So I have, and this is what will happen because we selected the foreground, right? We selected the subject, which means the foreground is what's selected, not the background. And it's the background we want to get rid of, which means we have to inverse our selection. And to find that, you go under the select menu and choose inverse. Okay, did you get that to work? So what you should see is awesome. What you should see is a floating selection around you, and how you know you've got the background selected is the floating marquee is also around the perimeter of your entire file as well. So now the only thing left to do, if you haven't already turned your layer in your layers palette from a background to a layer, you just click on the little lock. It'll turn it into a layer, allowing you to delete on a Mac, backspace on a PC. Whoops. There we go. And literally delete the background. Control D to deselect that now. So you can always zoom in and check how you did. So it's looking pretty good. Looking not too shabby. And I was able to salvage my whole earring here, so it didn't become part of the background. So for those of you who still need to delete content, so if I zoom in on here, if I zoom in and say I'm looking at this wispy hair going, you know what, this is a bit of a distraction. I think I'm gonna erase this element here. So for the ottoman or pieces that became part of you that you still want gone, this is where we go and we finish up with the eraser tool. So if you go into your toolbox, we have an eraser, and it too works with all the different brush sizes we have. So you can use your left and square brackets also here to reduce and increase the size of your eraser. But you have to watch how hard or how soft your eraser is. So what we'll want to do is in the upper right hand corner here, or is it in our property palette? Nope. So with the upper left hand corner here, you can see I have the eraser tool selected, but I'm not worried about the size of the brush because I can change that with my square brackets, but what I want is the hardness of the brush. So I don't want it so soft that I create a ghosting image on when I'm cutting this out, but I don't want it 100% so that when I cut it, see, it's like, I'm gonna reset this to 100%. Okay, so if I cut that, look, it looks like I cut it out with a pair of scissors. It's just like blunk, there it goes. If I cut that out with a 0% hardness, See how soft and feathery that is? That's going to look bad if I try to put a background in there. So what I'm going to do is I like to use about an 80 to 90% eraser. So when I do erase that, see how I'm just cleaning that up a little bit? It's got a bit of a softer edge. So I've just erased that detail, and it's got a slight soft edge, but barely any, so that when I add a background color in here, it's not going to look like I've made a mistake there in cutting that out. Okay, so I'm going to add that actually back in. Right, so to get rid of details in the foreground, you can use an eraser tool. Now, if you want to see what that looks like, before you start erasing some of that foreground and cleaning that up, why not add some background here? Then you can see in contrast, because the grid is sometimes hard to see what you're working with, but if you had a solid background to work with, it might make it easier to fix the details in your foreground, in your selection. So let's go back to our layers palette. So in our layers palette, there is us. We are our own layer. And if you really want to, you can double click the word layer 0 and type in your own name or portrait or whatever you want. But what I need you to do, if we're going to add a background, we're going to fill it with any color we want. And you could go to pexels.com and look for Paris and download the Eiffel Tower and put you in Paris if you really wanted to. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So you can trick people into thinking you're on vacation. Or maybe that's your goal for your you know, like a mood board. Maybe that's your goal for one of those. Where you can create like, this is where I'd like to be. This is my board where I want to be in a year. So you could have fun taking your portrait like this and adding different backgrounds of where you want to go and where you want to be. So how do we do that? How do we add that extra image? Well, we need another layer. So in our layers palette, there are many places to add a layer. You can go under the layer menu to new, add layer. You can go to your layers palette in the upper right hand corner. Every single palette has an options tab in the upper right hand corner, and I can click new layer here. Okay, and then I can name it, and I'm going to call this background. Now I'm going to fill it with some color. So now that I have added a new layer, I've named it background. Other places you can add a new layer is down here at the bottom. There's a little plus sign, and it'll say create new layer as well. It doesn't give you the option to name it. It just is called layer 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it's going to be called. Okay. So when you use the options tab and choose new layer, it gives you a dialog box that allows you to name it right away. Right. So now that I have a background layer, let's fill it with some color. So how am I going to fill it with color? Well, I can Control A to select all. So I want to make sure this background layer is selected. How do I know? The marquee is floating around the whole thing. So Control A to select all. And now let's fill it with color. But we didn't actually choose a color here. So what color can we fill it with? Well, we can fill it with any color. So there's a few ways that we can fill this background with color. I've selected the entire layer, select all. And under the edit menu, I'm going to fill. Edit, fill. So it's going to fill my selection. And I can choose any color I want. Right now, I don't have a lot of options because my foreground color is black. My background color is white. And then I have black and white. So if I fill it with black, okay, it's on top of my portrait. So that's why it's solid black. So if I move background underneath and drag and drop it below in my layers palette, there I am. I'm now on a black background. Now you'll see that where there's a little bit of ghosting around my hair because of the dark background. So, and that's going to happen because of the color pixels in it trying to differentiate from the background, but it's really not all that bad. But I don't want a black background. I want a different color. So do we have to now select colors and change the color? Like, do I have to go in, select black, change the color, and now file, edit, fill? No. This is where layer styles comes in handy and is probably your best bet altogether for doing this. All right. So, how many people need me to repeat any of this process? Is there anyone who would like me to repeat adding a background color?
Yeah, could you?
Yep, absolutely. All right, so currently we have us close cropped with a transparent background. It's a single layer in the layers palette. In order to add another layer, you can go in the upper right-hand corner, and this is my preference is this upper right-hand corner to select new layer, or in the bottom of the layers palette, there is a little plus sign where you can click and create a new layer. The difference is when you create a new layer here, it just pops in new layer, layer 1. It doesn't give you the option to name it. If you go into the option tab and choose new layer in the layers palette, it gives you a dialog box allowing you to change the name of the layer in real time, which is kind of nice. So that takes care of that. So you don't have layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5. You've now got properly named layers. Now that I have that background layer, which is empty, there's nothing in it, I'm going to Control A to select all, meaning I've selected the entire frame of the background. And now I'm just going to fill it using Edit, Fill. Now, what color am I going to fill it with? I'm going to fill it with black. Okay. Because I don't have foreground or background colors selected. They're also black and white. So I don't have very many options, but I'm going to show you what happens when we go and just fill it with a solid black color. So in my layers palette, I would have to rearrange my layers so that my background is actually behind my close crop. So I'll have to click, drag, and drop my background underneath my portrait in order to change the order. Okay, I have a black background. Great. So are we all to this point? Can I get a thumbs up? Good, good, good. Lots of thumbs up. Excellent. All right, so here we go. What we're going to do now is change this color. But I want you to keep this black one, okay? I want you to keep the black one. And the reason for that is we're going to use it as a vignette. So, you know, on Instagram, when you can put filters and things and you can put the vignette, so like you're spotlighted and the rest fades to black. I'm going to show you how to do that in the most simplest, easy, basic way in Photoshop. So you get this professional looking cool result with a very, very simple, low tech Photoshop option here. Okay. So let's keep background. Let's keep that black. Let's duplicate that layer. We want 2 of them. So if I right click on background on the layer, if you right click, you get this option menu, and I'm going to duplicate the layer. This is going to be my copy, but it's not going to be called background. This one's going to be background instead of copy. I'm going to call it background color. There we go. So you could do it that way, or you could file, new layer, select all, and fill it with black again. So there's lots of ways to do the same thing. As long as the end result is the same, you have 2 layers filled with black, you're good to go. So let's pick this new background color layer, the black one. And we're going to double click it over here on the right hand side. So I could go through the painstaking process of choosing colors, painting in new colors, filling it with new colors, and checking that all the time. Or let's take advantage, again, why do all the work when Photoshop will do the work for you? So we have this thing called layer styles. So this new background color, if I double click it over here in the gray area, because if you double click the words, it just allows you to change the name of your layer. If you move over to the right into the gray area here, where you see a little hand, if you double click that, you get this options tab, this box here called layer styles. And this thing is the best thing they ever put in here. There's lots of great things Photoshop now has, including the select subject. But one of the things that I love about layer styles is you can do a lot of playing around and changing in here in one spot. So what do I mean by that? I got my layer styles. So again, how did I get there? First, make sure you have the right layer selected, which is the new background color. Leave the other background at the bottom. Make sure you have the one on top. Double click in the gray area to reveal layer styles. And see on the left-hand side, it said blending options, what do we want to do with this? Oh, we want to color it. That's this one called color overlay. I want you to click on the words color overlay. So not only does it give you a little check mark in color overlay, it also highlights the color overlay option here. So to the right where you see color overlay, right now it's set to black. What if we clicked on that and changed the color? Now you can play with your colors in real time to see what it's going to look like in your image. And what color are you going to choose? I'm going to choose this a turquoisey color. Maybe, sort of, kind of. All right. Ah, that looks all right. I look a little bit washed out in comparison to this blue. I think the blue is washing me out. I might need to go slightly greener. So that helps a little bit. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to play with the colors in here. Again, how did I get there? Double click the layer to reveal layer styles. Then in the left-hand column, go to color overlay. And there you can choose what color you want and click anywhere in here to see what the results are going to look like. Okay, so in my case, the lighter the color, now that I've got this blue, I'm going to click OK. Zoom in on that detail. Look at that. Whoop. Looks pretty good.
Carolyn, quick question.
Yeah.
Mine won't show me in real time. I have to click OK.
You do? Okay. It shouldn't have to do that. Maybe it's just a little bit slow. Maybe if you click OK, try it again and see if it, did you try it again to see if it let you do it again?
So when I say OK, it didn't actually change it.
Okay. So do you have the right one selected? You might, so if you take a look in your background color, mine looks black, and see the one below it is also black. Which one do you have selected? The one on top or the one below?
I have the one on top.
Okay. So
And
other things you might want to look at with that color overlay is what's the blending mode?
Normal.
Okay.
But when I opened it, it was gray right away.
It was gray? Okay. You don't have gradient overlay, pattern overlay. It's definitely color overlay.
Yep.
Okay. And you definitely have the right layer open. Okay. Blending mode should be normal. You choose your color. What's your opacity set at?
100.
Okay, so that's correct. And if you click OK, nothing happens.
Well, it's already gray on my screen.
Okay,
So if I choose a color,
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't change anything.
doesn't want to change in real time.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
It doesn't even change the box, if that makes sense. Like where it says new and current to the right of the colors, like when you're in the color block.
I don't have new and current.
No, so when you click to change to go to get your
here.
options, yep.
Yeah.
So see there it says new and current.
Yeah.
Even when I choose a color in the sliding side there, those,
Oh,
yep,
you're
it
choosing
doesn't
it
change. Yeah, it doesn't change the boxes.
So make sure you're moving your mouse over to in the color palette. Like, are you clicking inside
Okay,
picker?
yep.
And it's
So
still
then
not changing?
No, now it is. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Whew. It took a little bit, but we got there. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's the easiest and fastest way to make a color change. And yes, you can see it in real time. Otherwise, as you just noted, if it didn't change, you'd be having to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to try to pick the color that you like. And if you use color overlay, you can see in real time how it's working. So to finish this off, aside from adding some text, see that background black I have? I'm going to move it to the top. And I'm going to cover everything up. So now my black background, which I'm going to rename background, I'm going to turn that into vignette, vignette. And I'm going to use a really big eraser tool. And I have to have it selected before it'll let me erase anything. And I'm going to use a really huge, giant, super duper soft brush. So I want the hardness of my brush to be 0. Now, where am I going to erase this? I need to erase this part of the image. I'm going to go right over my face here. If I want to see through this layer, just like in when we were working with the opacity of the view, the overlay, well, that's exactly what we've got here in our layers palette. I can change the opacity to, I can see through that layer. So I'm going to see through it a little bit. And with my giant eraser, I'm going to spotlight myself and erase part of that vignette. There we go. And if I do a little bit more, I can make my brush even bigger, my square bracket. And I'm going to make that vignette a little bit bigger. There we go. And I've now got a vignette. I could turn the opacity on even harsher. That's quite the vignette. But you can control the vignette and the opacity of it. Not only that, because it's black and I want the black to blend into the color below, in the layers palette, I can also blend from normal. I'm going to see what happens when you scroll over here. I'm going to multiply them. So darken, blend, linear burn. There's all sorts of cool overlays you can do. It depends on what you're doing, if it's going to show up. Darken, hard light. So let's see. Because it's black. Ooh, look at that. That's the opposite. Oh, that's cool. Look at that hue. It desaturated me in the opposite direction. That's kind of fun. All right. So I am going to go with multiply. Because what that's going to do is going to blend my black into my blue background and me. So if I turn that off, kind of boring, right? And plain. If I turn it on, so that's the eyeballs in your layers palette here, you can see what the results of that are. What if you don't want a black vignette? What? You can change the color? You sure can. You double click it, color overlay, ta-da! I have a different color vignette even if I really want to. I think I might just stick with black. But see the possibilities in here? Ooh, orange. Funky. So all of your layers are like, if you keep them all separate, then you have complete control over each one of these layers. And that's the best part of this. All right, how'd you do? Good?
Carolyn, so mine has like a hard edge because it's like I'm up against something and
Yeah.
I didn't move it over. So now like my body's just like floating with a hard edge on one side. I want it to be over on the side of the cover. How do I move my
Oh,
portrait?
you mean like you're cropped, like you're cut?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so if you ended up getting a close crop where you're literally cropped at the shoulders, this is what you do. Select your portrait layer, the one that you're on. Make sure that's selected in the layers palette. Now hit Control T for the bounding box. Now you can move your mouse, you can move yourself anywhere you want inside. The cool thing is you can make yourself smaller or bigger also. So if you want to change where you're sitting in your magazine or how big or small you are, you can do that as well. So in your case, if you want to be off to the right because you're literally cut, your picture's cut there, great, because you can always put all your text on the left, right? It doesn't have to be right and left like my cover is. It could be you're off to one side and all your text is on the other. So it's up to you how you'd like to align your photo, and then how big or how small you make it inside that frame.
Great, thank you. And I'm sorry, can you go over the like you just moved a little quickly for me to like get all the vignette
Oh,
steps
okay. Yeah,
down.
the vignette. The nice thing about the vignette is it's essentially, I'm just going to fill that again with black. Okay, so I have a solid black layer. Okay, so if you want to see through any of your layers, you just like in our view when we were making our selection, we just changed the opacity. So if I want to see through that black layer to see where I want to erase and create my focus, my spotlight essentially, I'm going to reduce the opacity of that vignette. So now I can see me underneath. And what I'm going to do is with my eraser tool, my eraser here, if I move my mouse over to the screen, I can see how big or small my eraser is. So that's left and right square brackets. But what I definitely want to set up in the upper left-hand corner is the hardness of the brush. I'm going for 0% hardness. So I have this really soft exposure of my eraser so that when I erase, I have a really soft focus, rather than if your eraser is set to 100% hardness. Talk about spotlight, right? You could do that. That's still fun. That still looks cool. But vignettes usually are faded out. So if we're going for that fade, we want 0% hardness with our eraser. So there I am. If I increase the size of my brush with the right square bracket, I can go over that again. There we go. So what that does is it gives you some cool lighting effects you didn't have before, right? So it allows you to create more focus on you, your face, and fade out the rest of you, because that's not what the focus is of this cover. You're the focus. So that leaves all those other details faded out, and you can put text up over top. All right, so the last step here before we add some text is let's save this. I don't think we've saved this. We've named it and opened it, but we never did actually save it. So we need to save this. So if I do Control S right now, or File Save As, you're going to want to save this on your computer. I'm going to save it in my headshots folder with my other headshots. And what we're going to do is we're going to save it as a straight Photoshop file. Why do we need to save just Photoshop? Well, because we need to preserve the layers in the layers palette. So we can always change the background color. We can put another photo in there if we want. We can change our vignette. We can change a lot of things. But unless we preserve those layers, we don't have that option. So we need to save this format as Photoshop and hit save. All right, so we have run out of time to put this in our magazine itself, but what we'll do next week is we'll continue with this. We're going to add some text. I mean, you could add text now and start playing with text for your cover. And what do you want to name your magazine? So if I grab the text tool right now, I can click anywhere on my cover and it will create a brand new text layer. And I could put, maybe I don't know what I want to call it. So I'm just going to type in all caps, magazine. Like maybe I have no idea what I want to name it. So here's the word magazine. And with my move tool, I'm just going to move that into place. Oh, here we go. And you can still use Control T to get a bounding box, even though it's text. And we'll work in our, next week, we'll work in our guides and things so we know where to place that next week. So what you need to decide is what you're going to name your magazine for next week. So mine's called visual, or I have the word design, huge, but I have visual communications and then design. You can name your magazine whatever you like. Again, if we keep it editable text at any time with your text tool, you can change the name of your magazine. So again, this is why we want to preserve the layers of our text. So we have those options for making any kind of changes we want to make. So I'm also if you want to put it in front of the word design, design can go behind your head as well. All right, so there's lots of great things we can do in here. So for next week, decide what you want to name your magazine and we'll complete this and get it in on the cover of our magazine. All right, any questions before we move forward? Or before we go? Yeah.
What's the due date for this?
You know what? It's not due. Because we didn't get to complete it for today. But if you'd like me to review your Photoshop file, put this in the magazine assignment folder, the magazine cover assignment folder. If you want me to check your Photoshop file to see how, like for size and everything. If there's anything that you need to fix up, I can take a look at that.
Okay, thank you. So do you know what will be the final due date for the magazine cover?
So next week we'll complete it with our masthead. We'll be importing it into InDesign. So it'll be the 2 days after the in-class assignment next week.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll finish this next week and then it'll be the Wednesday at 5. Okay. Yes.
How soon are you gonna upload the recording? Because I got lost a long time ago.
Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened with your laptop. So hopefully you can resolve that. So as soon as class is over, it renders. It takes about half hour to 40 minutes to render me to get it up to YouTube and then get the class link in there. Last week it didn't save. I searched and I don't know what happened to the video. After the pause, it had stopped recording. I didn't have any recording. And so I was on Zoom help to figure out like, where did it go and why did it do that? and that's why the recording was truncated. So hopefully the entire video is here when I click end class, then it should render the entire video. If it's missing in any capacity, I have taught this, I taught this last semester as well. So I'll actually put a recording of how to finish this. If anyone would like to get ahead on how to finish this, if you want to take some time to do that this week. Okay. All right. Any other questions before we go?
Do we have a milestone due this week?
Oh, you just might. It might be milestone 2. Which I would have to post. I think we do actually. And it's your sports fashion ad. So let me just double check that. So again, using your now masterful photography skills that you have all demonstrated with the lighting conditions. Your next one is your sports fashion ad. So let me just double check that. Yes, it is. Oh, wait, video production. Oh, your PSA. Oh, this must be an old one. Just a minute. Oh, this is an old one. It should be your sports fashion ad is next. I made some changes this semester based on lots of feedback from the class. Just so you know, I take your feedback to heart. And then I also work with your other profs as well. And I'm just finalizing assignments for Catherine's class, for your events marketing class. So the newest, there we go. So yes, milestone 2 is your sports fashion ad. You can be into any sport, you can be into any fashion. So whether it's, so you're, again, think of yourself as being hired as a model to play a sport. Maybe you're wearing some fashion of that sport. There were lots of great, I always get lots of great ones for that one. For myself, if you want to see an example of what I did for mine, I actually used that one picture for this image here. I turned into, if I can find it. Let's see, my Kiss ad. So I was the model for Kiss Cosmetics, which would never happen in real life, but you'll see what the magic of Photoshop, you can put yourself in anything, right? So my Kiss ad, I'll just show you what that looks like. Okay. So what we're going to end up doing with this particular ad is, if I could get it to open here. All right. Okay, so can everyone see my advertisement? So you are going to be the model of your ad. So whether you want to be sports or whether you want to be fashion, it can be anything within sports and anything within fashion. So I had students pose like they were running in a gym. They were working out at the equipment. And so that's how they model themselves in the sport. Then you need to have a product, and this will all be in the milestone 2 outline. There'll be a product that you're going to be promoting. And in my case, it's eyeliner. And you can see that I have a close crop of the eyeliner in my ad, as well as the logo of the item I'm promoting. So you do not have to shoot yourself in black and white. You're going to shoot yourself in color. So you're going to get 3 pictures that are going to work well. that you think for poses for your product. You're going to find a picture of the product itself that you're going to be promoting. So maybe it's a pair of shoes, like Nike shoes. And then you're going to need, if it's Nike, then you'll need the Nike logo. So that's what you're going to collect. So you're going to shoot a picture of how you think you should look for your image. Some people actually wear the product as well. So one of my students last semester, she was wearing these Swarovski crystal pink earrings. So what we're doing is we're doing what's called the spot color ad. So as you can see, my ad looks black and white. It was shot in color, but I'm going to show you how to make it black and white. We blurred out. We used like a blur tool to show you a tilt blur. So the only thing in pure focus are my eyes, which are the focus of the product, the eyeliner. And we brought back in one bit of color. So only my eyes, my irises are in color in this ad, and then the product itself. So this is what we're creating next week. Now, you could be running, you could be jumping, you could be working out at equipment, you could be doing yoga, you could be sitting in yoga meditation pose. It could be a product that you're putting on, lipstick, you're doing your hair, whatever product. Oh, also some fashion, could be a watch, right? You could be Rolex, that's a fashion ad, right? So whatever watch you're wearing, or Fitbit. So there's lots of possibilities, and it's all outlined in milestone 2, which I'll upload momentarily as well. All right. So any questions? Some people are dropping off, sorry. So if you have any more questions, you can email me. But if not, I will be uploading this and this video and the milestone 2 that is due on Sunday next week.
So what you want is 3 pictures and a picture of the
product, and you'll have to find the logo as well. Find a copy of the logo somewhere.
A copy of the logo, a copy of the product, and 3 pictures.
Yep.
That'll be
you can turn into an ad.
So that'll be 5 things we're submitting to you by Sunday.
For milestone, yeah. So that way you're fully prepared in putting this together next week. So we'll finish up the magazine cover, and then we'll do our magazine ad.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Carolyn, does our face have to be in it?
So if you don't want your face to be in it, I had 2 students who were clever with theirs. It was a basketball ad. So she didn't want her face in it either. So she had the basketball, or was it a volleyball, right in front of her face, and she was just peering over the top, so I could still see it was her. And then she was holding the, so she was promoting the sport equipment in her ad. Now, the reason why you're supposed to be in your own ad is to showcase your ability to take your own photos. But also, this is you're the feature of your magazine. So you're on your cover, you're in your ads. Now, you could be meditating, or you could be running. You could try lots of different poses. And it doesn't have to be just your face. It can be your whole body. You could be leaning up against a fence wearing your favorite Levi's jacket, and you're promoting Levi's. You know what I mean? So, and the reason why we actually introduced doing self-portrait photography in here wasn't just for photography, but we had a lot of people cheating on their content. So if it's you in it, it's definitely your work, right? So that was another reason why we did it. But I'm not very fond of my own, like, as my mom even told me, you'll never be a model. So even my own mom couldn't even back me up. But what we do is we do the best we can do with what we have. I don't know why you don't want to be in yours. You're a good looking lady.
Thank you. It was just ideas flowing through my head. It really it was more of a creative thing I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Because the other thing too is I almost went as far as to just get this much of my face, because for the eyeliner, and I did have one originally. That's where I that's what I had, was just a partial of my face. Because I've had students, like I had a student with really bad burns from a childhood accident, well, war-torn country. So she had all these burns. So we just worked with, actually, I convinced her it's part of who she is and her personality. And her, all of a sudden, her photography, I was like, whoa, she's now, you know, letting it be part of who she is. But yeah, hopefully I was like, okay, be creative, but be in it. So I was hoping it wasn't self-esteem, because you shouldn't have to worry about that. You probably didn't have a mom who said, yeah, you should probably stay away from modeling. Oh, mom, I love her, but yeah, sometimes my dreams. Anyway, okay.
Okay, thank you. Have a good week.
You're welcome. You too. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
So
everybody.
we don't have, sorry, so we don't have assignments due this week.
No,
right.
because we didn't get it completed in class. So next week we'll complete 2.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
Bye.
Have a good week, everyone.